We've still got a few people finding parking, but I think we'll try and get on to start so we can keep the schedule running on schedule. Welcome to tonight's forum. My name is Jenni Perkins and I'm the Acting Commissioner for Children and Young People. I'd like to begin this evening by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. It is wonderful to see such a great response to tonight's forum from parents, carers and those working with children and young people. And I guess just to get a bit of feel in terms of sort of who we are and where we're from, it would be helpful to get through a show of hands if you could just let us know those of you who are parents and carers here today. Right, probably about 3/4 of you, I think, if I won't do a head count. Educators? Okay, that looks like 3/4 too from up here, so my maths is not doing too very well. Other professionals, if you've already count. Young people under 18, I did see someone very little, but okay. All right, look, well, thanks very much for that. I'd also like to acknowledge the Executive Director of Statewide Services at Department of Education, Mr Lindsay Hale, who is representing the Director-General, Sharon O'Neill, this evening. Before we begin tonight, I have a few housekeeping items, which most of you will probably be able to guess. First is, could I ask you all to please switch your mobile phones to silent? I've done mine, so I feel okay. For those of you who didn't find them earlier on, the bathrooms are located back in the foyer through which you've just come through, sort of behind you that way. In the case of emergency, you may exit through the doors on either side, down the bottom here. And I'd also like to advise you that tonight's presentation is being filmed and will be made available through my website. Also, you will note that we have given you a feedback form. I'll be reminding you about this later on, but I thought I wanted to get in early because we'd really encourage you to complete that, take a minute or two before you leave tonight, because that does help us plan for future forums. The feedback form includes this evening's order of proceedings, and please note that we have scheduled time for questions to our speakers at the end of the evening, so you may like to write down your questions as you go. Just very briefly, the role of the Commissioner for Children and Young People is to work closely with children and young people, their families, community and government to make Western Australia a better place for our younger citizens. For those who may not be aware of the activities of my office, our work includes consulting broadly with the community, particularly with children and young people, to ensure that their voices are heard and used to influence decision making. Commissioning research into emerging issues that impact children and young people's wellbeing, considering the latest evidence from researchers around the world, and using all of this information to advocate for changes in services, policies and legislation that better support children and young people's wellbeing. My office also works to increase community awareness about the issues that impact children and young people's wellbeing and encouraging positive debate about how we as a community can respond to these challenges, and that's why we're here today. This week is National Children's Week, a time when we celebrate across Australia the children and young people in our community. It's also an opportunity to highlight the rights of children and young people to grow up in a safe and supportive environment. The topic of today's seminar, bullying behaviour, is an issue that's often raised by children and young people in my conversations with them across Western Australia and in many of the consultations my office has held. In a recent consultation with over 300 children and young people about what makes an organisation safe and friendly for children, when asked what they worry about when getting involved in an organisation or activities outside the home, the most common response was other children and if they might be bullied. Importantly, these children said they wanted adults to listen to them and take action. Many shared stories about not being believed and instances of bullying where there was only one person's word against another. This often led to issues going unresolved from the young person's perspective and a subsequent lack of confidence in the benefits of raising any future concerns. From my discussions with young people who've disengaged from mainstream schooling, being bullied is often raised by them as one of the primary factors they left their school. The recently released Young Minds Matter national survey found that 1/3 of 11 to 17-year-olds had been bullied in the previous 12 months, and that 62% of young people with major depressive disorder based on their own self-report had been bullied in the previous 12 months. As parents, educators and counsellors, we're all challenged in knowing how best to understand and respond to bullying behaviour, and most importantly, how to support the wellbeing of children and young people. We are very fortunate in Perth to have an internationally recognised child health researcher who has taken over 12 years of research investigating bullying behaviour, Winthrop Professor Donna Cross. Professor Cross has a long association with the Office of the Commissioner of Children and Young People as one of the 12 ambassadors for children and young people, and I appreciate her support of tonight's forum. I look forward to more formally introducing Professor Cross to you all prior to her presentation. I'd also like to recognise Arlene Corici, President of the WA School Psychologists Association, who similarly has a wealth of experience in supporting children and young people's wellbeing, including issues around bullying. Firstly, though, and appropriately given my role and commitment to provide children and young people with the opportunity to have their voices heard on matters important to their wellbeing, I'd like to introduce Sam Neill and Neve Doherty.